mentioned before, my name is Ben Lamb and I'll be chairing this webinar. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. First off, your audio is muted, so it means that you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So if you do have questions as we're going through, please feel free to use the questions or the chat windows. More than happy to answer them as we go if I can. Otherwise, I'll ask Belinda at the end. And also, don't worry about taking any notes. Basically, what we're going to do is after the webinar, we're going to send you an email with a link to our blog, which will have this recording up to speed. And basically, you can have a look at it then. So, starting off, today our presenter is Belinda Walsh. Some of you may have met Belinda before. Belinda is a senior consultant, and she specialises in HR solutions. She's a recognised expert within the HR tech space and has extensive experience with our organisational charting solution, Org+, as well as with our newer employee onboarding solution, HR Onboard. So throughout her experience implementing Org+, Belinda's worked with many of the biggest and most successful businesses in Australia, working with a vast number of HR systems to visualise and analyse their information. So today she brings that expertise and knowledge to talk us all through the use cases of Org+ Enterprise. So welcome, Belinda.
Thanks, Ben. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to talk about all the different ways I've seen customers get the most out of Org+ Enterprise. And this webinar will give you a high-level look at the various uses I've seen customers use Org+ Enterprise for. And we'll also touch on some topics I've spoken about previously in other webinars. In my experience, a large majority of customers use Org+ Enterprise for the most basic function, which is to create a basic org chart. And while Org+ does this very well, I mean that's what it was designed to do, it's also capable of assisting you with a lot more. Org+ is more than just an organisational charting tool. My aim today is to show you how some other customers are utilising the features within Org+. So hopefully these ideas will help you too. So let's have a look at some of the use cases for Org+. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is visualization, which I'm going to show you some examples of. And this is obviously the most common use of Org+ Enterprise, viewing your hierarchy in an org chart format. Moving on to reporting, which is something that some customers are quite familiar with as well, and that is basically looking at how we can show different pieces of data visually in Org+ Enterprise. Directory is one that I don't think that many customers are using. I do have a few customers using it for this purpose, but looking at how you can use Org+ Enterprise as a corporate directory to find out phone numbers, email addresses, and that type of thing. So we're going to have a look at that as well. Historical analysis, so being able to go back on data from 6 months ago, a year ago, a couple of years ago, and being able to view how the organisational structure looked back then compared to how it looks now. A data cleansing and verification, so being able to find faults in your data and then make that easier for you to see where there are problems and where you need to fix them. Modelling and restructuring, so being able to use your org chart to create restructured models so you can decide how the structure should be and work with different changes within your workforce. And finally, succession planning. So being able to use Org+ to help create succession plans for key positions within your organisation. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'm actually quite interested to know what your main use of Org+ currently is, if you're a current user. So we're going to do a quick poll now to find out. Ben, can you please bring up that poll?
Not a problem. So the poll's open now, so please feel free to choose what your main use of Org+ is. I'm just going to give it a minute or so just for everyone to jump in there. Got a lot of people going on the visualization side, which is expected, but yeah, a few people all over, which is great. All right, we'll give it a couple more seconds and then we'll close it off and we'll keep going. So get in fast if you haven't done it already. All right, closing it off now. So you should be able to see on the screen now of what the main uses of Org+ are. Linda, is that what you expected?
Yes. So the large majority, which is 62%, are using it for visualization, which is definitely the expectation because that's what is the main use of Org+ is. But it is good to see that some other people are using it for reporting and directory and restructuring and succession planning. So it's good that we've got some uses in the other categories as well, which is fantastic to see. Okay, so now that we know what's happening across all your organisations, I'm just going to show you what else you can use Org+ for to get some ideas of how you can utilise it in your organisation. So we're going to start off with basic visualisation. So this is obviously quite a straightforward one. We're basically viewing the company's hierarchy in a visual form, like the basic chart I've got up on the screen. Most customers use Org+ Enterprise for this purpose. It is the main purpose of Org+ Enterprise. However, a lot of customers that we have are handling this in probably a slower, more manual way by either manually creating the data in Excel spreadsheets or manually manipulating the data from their HR system before it gets imported into Org+. This is obviously very time consuming. The chart can easily be out of date. And it also causes some problems with your source of truth, especially if you're manually creating that data in an Excel spreadsheet. Things like position titles, not the correct position titles, and there can be quite a few data issues with that. So basically what I'm going to show you now, this is a basic use of visualization. I'm going to show you a more advanced way to do it or handle it. And the more advanced way is to be pulling that data directly from your HR system. Now I've got a screenshot up at the moment of an Alesco screen actually, for those of you that use Alesco. If not, it's the same sort of concept in most HR systems. And that's the concept of having a position number, but then also a report to position number, the two main fields used to create a hierarchy within Org+. So they're obviously the key fields that Org+ needs to be able to create that hierarchy. But when you're pulling data from your HR system, you can pull through a lot more than just the hierarchy information. Obviously, things like the name and position titles are good ones, but you can pull through lots of extra information to show things like leave balances, C levels that they're working on or they're working in, salary information, FTEs, etc. So it's good to have that there. Having it come through automatically can be a really good way because obviously it's automated. The data is accurate and it can save you a lot of time. You don't have that manual work involved in pulling the data and manipulating the data. This can also be really useful for reporting, which I'm going to show you in the next section, because if you've got more information, you've got more that you can actually report on as well. So that's basically visualization. This one is probably one of the ones our customers are doing the best, as I previously mentioned. And with this automation of the data as well, Navigo can assist you with this with our Org+ adapters. So if you haven't already got an Org+ adapter, this is basically code we've got that we can pull that data automatically into Org+ Enterprise for you. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next one now, which is reporting. Now, reporting can be done a couple of different ways in Org+ Enterprise, and the first way, which I'm calling the basic method, is using the advanced search functionality. Now, if you have a look at the screen that I've got up at the moment, we're actually looking at the directory tab, and I've got two conditions of criteria set up at the moment. The first one is that I'm looking for people that are in the marketing division. So I have division is marketing come up. The next part down, I'm also saying they have to be in the marketing division, and I want their leave balance to be greater than or equal to 15. So I'm looking for everyone in the marketing team that has more than 15 days leave accrued effectively. And from there, when I hit the search, these are the results that I get. So basically, Org+ Enterprise can be a valuable reporting tool for you from that perspective because you're having, as long as you've got your data refreshing on a daily basis, Org+ Enterprise has got quite up-to-date data that you can set quite a few conditions on and do that reporting with. So basically from here, you can add as many levels of criteria as you like by just choosing the fields that you want to set the criteria on. the comparison and the value, and clicking Add, which adds it up here, and you can keep adding more and more levels of criteria. From here, now that I have this list of all the people in marketing that have got a higher lead balance, I can also click the Send to Excel button, and this will send that data to Excel. So you've got an Excel copy of that information as well. Now, this is functionality that I've had other customers tell me about. This is not one that I was aware of until I've heard that a lot of customers found this was a faster way to pull this information than using their existing reporting tools, which is nice to know. So hopefully that one can help you out with some reporting. And moving on to more of an advanced version of this, looking at some more advanced reporting, we can have a look at some different charts basically. So there's quite a lot of different charts you can build within AugPlus Enterprise, and the example I've got on screen at the moment is a gender diversity chart, where you can see I've got different head counts in the profile here, how many males and how many females, and also the total head count, as well as percentages. I've got percentage of males and females within the chart. Now, one of the big benefits of doing this reporting within AugPlus Enterprise over a traditional report is that you can do it on a hierarchy level. So at the moment, I'm looking at Matthew Sullivan, and I can see this information from Matthew going through the organisation to the bottom. Whereas if I clicked on, say, Craig Dunn as an example, then I would be able to, these figures would automatically change to show me from Craig Dunn's team going down through the hierarchy. So you can see it from different perspectives. Also, as you can see, it's quite visual. So I've got, females in pink, males in blue here, and I can do things like I've got here pictures of lots of men because this team has a gender imbalance, and there's there's a lot of men in that team as opposed to women, and just highlighting that there. Now, with the visual reports, you can create many, many different types. One organisation I worked with created a big suite of charts looking at things like the age, different classifications within their organisation, C-levels, doctoral qualifications, employee status, establishment, gender, Indigenous staff to see how many they had within different teams, leave balances, which is a very common one, length of service, and vacant positions. So there's some common examples. I've got another example here just to give you some more ideas, which is our generation chart, which obviously highlights what generations different staff members are in and has that reporting there as well. I also had one customer as well basically get all the reports they were creating out of their reporting tool and replace them with charts within AugPlus Enterprise. So yeah, that's basically some ideas of all the different visual reports we can do. Now, this is a topic that I have spoken about before in a lot more length, which is up on the screen at the moment, improving HR reports through visualization. So we've got a blog link there. We're actually going to send this at the end of the webinar as well, so you've got a copy of it if you'd like. We also have a document called our AugPlus chart portfolio, which if you haven't seen that before, is basically a suite of charts where you can see lots of different reporting ideas in those charts as well. So hopefully that's a good resource for you to get some more ideas on how you can use AugPlus Enterprise for reporting. Okay, moving on to the next use case, which is the basic directory. Okay, so basic directory, basically using the directory functionality within AugPlus Enterprise, but having AugPlus set up with some information like your work phone number, your email address, extension numbers, fax numbers if you want to, so that people can find that information out within AugPlus itself. Now, I've had a few customers that haven't had this information because that's typically stored in a system like Active Directory as opposed to your HR system. So I've had a few customers that have gone through a data merge process where they're pulling data from multiple systems, like Active Directory. I did have one customer that also pulled some data from a mapping solution that they have that mapped out desk locations and things within their organisation, pull all that data together and then displayed it in the directory tool. So that sort of thing can be done as well. This gives people a lot more visibility, and the other benefit is that when they find someone and they can't get onto them for whatever reason, they can actually see where in the hierarchy they sit, so they might be able to see who they're sitting next to, who is also in their team, so they can contact them, especially if they're on leave or something like that, and it's not a team they normally work with. So it can be very good from a visual perspective in that way. Taking the directory to the next level and making it a bit more advanced is utilising the ALT+ Enterprise URL functionality that's available. So on the screen I've currently got up at the moment, you can see there's an employee search area just on the left-hand side here. This is basically integrating the ALT+ Enterprise Search within the application. So what that means is from here, if I typed in, for example, Matthew and hit go, this would take me straight back to that directory tab with all the results of Matthew showing. So it links your intranet basically straight in. Now I should point out this screenshot here is just a dummy screenshot of our Marin company, which is our dummy company intranet portal. So just give you some ideas on things you can do. This screen also lets you do a few other things as well. So we've got some direct links here. So you could link directly to your org chart. View My Team would link straight to your team, so you can see where your team is in that org chart. Company directory obviously goes to the directory tab. And then you can link to heads of departments as well. So hitting human resources would take you to the head of the human resources team. So there's quite a few things that you can do to integrate your directory into your portal and make that a bit more usable for your end users. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to looking at historical analysis. Now this is one that I probably find customers don't use very often. And that is being able to have a history of how your workforce data has changed over time. Now, in a basic way with ALT+ Enterprise, unfortunately, it's a little bit manual in a way to do it. You can save your chart from the Chart tab, and you'll basically get a pop-up like this one here, where you can save that file as an OPX file, which is the default ALT+ format, and then you've got a copy of that chart that you'd have to save on a file server or something like that. You can open that file up again using either the desktop application or modeler and view that data there and basically go through it that way. Now obviously this is manual because you'll have to do this every time you wanted to create a copy of your charts. Obviously a little bit time consuming depending on how many different views you have as well. And it is a bit prone to someone forgetting. If someone's on leave and that's when you normally create it, you'd obviously have to handle that. The only other problem with that as well is there is a maximum of 5,000 records. So if you're a larger organisation and you have more than 5,000 positions within your data, this method won't work for you either. But it is one way that you can start doing it now and start creating historical copies of your data. Now this can be really handy from the point of view if you want to compare your data from 6 months ago, a year ago, a couple of years ago. You can open up the chart and actually view the differences between them. So not only just, who was sitting in particular positions at that point in time, but if you have some really good reports set up, like the gender chart and the generation chart I showed you before, you can see how the gender diversity has changed over time, or how the generation diversity has changed, or a number of different factors. So that could be really handy. Now, if we want to take this to the next level and do a more of an advanced way of doing historical analysis, the Archive and Compare module within ALT+ Enterprise has features where this can automatically create these archives for you. So how this module works is that you have a schedule, however often you'd like the archives to be created, and it creates a copy of that data for you at that point in time. Then within ALT+ Enterprise, in the archive, in the chart tab, this little archive drop-down shows up where you can switch between the current chart and then previous archive data, and you can switch between them. So obviously you can switch between them and get a visual look of how things were different within the team at that point in time, and you can still navigate around that chart as though it were the current chart you're looking at now. It also has the functionality to be able to compare archives. So what you can do from here is look at a previous chart and then a future chart, not a future chart, a previous chart, and do a comparison, and that will give you a listing of all the changes that have happened in that time. Now these changes are generally, someone has left this position and a new position's been created, that sort of information. So I've had one customer that uses this who had a big merger within their organisation, and they found this tool really valuable to be able to see, okay, this is how the organisation looked before the merger, and then after the merger, and then ongoing time, so they can see the differences and do comparisons that way. So it'd be very valuable from that perspective. So that's historical analysis. I'm going to move on now to basic data cleansing and verification. So this is where we can basically use OGClass Enterprise to help us find problems in our data. Now, I often hear customers say that their data's not ready for OGClass yet. You know, they've got a lot of data problems and, you know, if they put it into OGClass, it'll just look a mess. So my answer to that is that that's what you should be doing. Put it into OGClass, see the mess, and use OGClass to help you clean up that mess effectively. So from a data cleansing perspective, just even putting your data in, probably one of the biggest things I find with customers is they look at their data and going, oh, that person shouldn't be in that position, or they're reporting to the wrong person, or where's that person gone? They're completely missing from the chart, completely. And so just by having your data come through in a visual perspective, you're going to have a lot of cleansing things to fix up from your data in your HR system to start with. You can also utilize the formulas and the conditional formatting within OGClass Enterprise to help highlight issues in your data. So you can see in this example I have here, I've got everyone's FTE showing as well as their employment type. And I've got a bit of a rule set up here that if they're a full-time employee, or they're a part-time employee and their FTE is 1, that's basically a data issue. And you can see here with Jessica, I've got a red border around her because her employment type doesn't match with her FTE. So just basically visually highlight there's problems with that data. So this is an example I've had customers use before to help with these data cleansing. I've also had some other customers that had hierarchy information stored in multiple systems and wanted to align them. And so they got OGClass Enterprise for the purpose of doing visual comparisons of their charts and cleansing those data issues and sorting that out. So it can be really valuable from that perspective. So taking this to an advanced level, we've got a change request form that I've got up on the screen. So this is basically using the concept of crowdsourcing effectively to try and get information from others to help you cleanse the data. Now, the idea with this change request form is that in the profile you've got an option for users to say, you know, the data's not correct, we need to update some data. So if they click on that link, it brings up a page like this where the existing data for that person is already showing, and this screen is completely customizable, so you can choose what fields you want to be available here. And from here they can go, okay, I've changed work phone number, change the phone number in here, and hit submit. Now, you don't need to worry, this isn't going to update your HR system. We wouldn't do that to you. But this is something that you could have where it sends an email to someone in HR to basically identify that, yes, you know, that phone number's a legitimate change, or if it's a change where someone's maybe changed their position title and wants to be more important than they should be, or whatever that is, that, you know, you can say, well, actually that change shouldn't go through, and you've got that process in place to make sure that the data changes are correct. But this way you've got not just, you know, a few people in HR trying to cleanse the data, you've got the whole organisation constantly giving you feedback if you've got data issues, which can be really handy as well. So that's one way you could handle it. Now this topic is quite a big one, and once again this is something we have previously done a webinar on. So there's a webinar, top tips for improving your HR data accuracy, but if you haven't seen that one, it might be worth having a look at as well to help you get some more ideas on how to do that. So this is a link we'll also be sending out after the webinar as well, if you're interested. Okay, moving on now to modelling and restructures. So this can often be a fun activity if you've ever gone through a large restructure. And looking at this at a basic level, for those of you that haven't seen, OGClass Enterprise has a blueprint module, which is very handy for these projects. Now that's basically what I've got on my screenshot up here at the moment. What I've done is I've actually split the screen, so you can see I've got part of the organisation at the top here and another part of the organisation further down. Now this is a really handy tool, especially if you're doing large organisational restructures. You can basically drag someone from a position anywhere within the organisation and drag them up to somewhere else and move them around. Now Blueprint is a drag-drop tool, so it is a really fast way to be able to make changes within your organisation structure and visually see it straight away. you can see the impact it has as you're going through it. It also has a really nice feature, the staging area on the left-hand side here, which is a great place to put people or positions that you're not sure where they belong to right now while you're working in a particular area, or they may no longer be within the organisation at the end of the restructure. So it's somewhere to basically put that those positions while you're working through things. So the blueprint tool is very handy from a restructure perspective. Looking at this in a more advanced way, utilising both the blueprint module and having some really smart reports created within AugPlus Enterprise helps give you a better result. So in this example I have here, the chart's got the headcount, so the employee headcount or could be position headcount, the FTE roll-up, and also the number of direct subordinates. Now you can hopefully also see there's conditional formatting set up where we've got some highlighting to show when someone's got too many direct subordinates. Like in the case of Matthew Sullivan, he has more than 7, so I've highlighted him in a burgundy colour. And then also if managers don't have enough direct subordinates. So you can see here I've got Laurie Wheel and Chase Rogers in orange, basically saying they've got 2 direct subordinates, that's not enough to have a really balanced org structure. Now this is a chart I actually created when I was doing a large restructure with one of the banks. And they wanted to have basically a very balanced org structure as they were going through doing this. So we created these conditional formats and rules to help them make that org structure more balanced. Another example I did for another organisation was add levels into this chart so they could see how deep the organisation was, because they didn't want to go past a certain level and found that their existing structure was actually a lot deeper than what it should have been. And the benefit of using this and the blueprint tool is that while you're creating your models and you move and drag and drop boxes, instantly you can see the impact of that change. So these conditional formats and headcounts will instantly recalculate so you can see the impact, which is obviously very valuable while you're trying to make some key decisions on the new structure and layout. You can see the impact of the changes that you've made. Again, modelling and restructures is quite a large topic, and it's one that we have spoken about a bit more as well. So if you're interested in restructures and this is an area that you'd like to know more about, we've got a webinar on this one called Mastering Organisational Restructures, and we'll send this link out as well, and you can see more about different ways you can handle your restructures in that webinar. Okay, and finally the last topic I'm going to be talking about today is succession planning. Now, succession planning, for those of you that haven't done much with succession planning before, the idea is that you create a plan for key positions within the organisation in case they leave. You know, it's the hit by the bus scenario where you're just making sure that you've got a plan in place for those key positions. So currently I found that there's not a lot of organisations that are doing succession planning, and when I first started working with customers on this, I found either they weren't using them or there were a few customers that were using Excel spreadsheets to handle them as well. So obviously not the most ideal way to handle them. So trying to use AugPlus for a basic use of succession planning, what you could do is create, again, some reports to help identify key positions within the organisation. So the example I've got up on the screen at the moment, you can see I've got a little key in the box here. So this could be identifying key positions or employees, depending on how you prefer this to work, within the organisation that you need to make sure you've got a plan for. This chart also shows performance and potential values, so you can see how well that employee is currently performing in that role as well, which can help make decisions. Other reports that are useful for succession planning is also charts like the generation chart, which can highlight the ageing workforce and help you make decisions on other key positions that you might need to have plans for as well. Okay, so we're going to look at more of an advanced version of this. There's a succession planning module within AugPlus Enterprise for those of you that aren't aware. Now this module has a lot of different features in it, but at a high level, the idea is that you create a succession plan. So basically this is a succession plan area underneath the box here for those key positions within the organisation. This is also a drag and drop tool very similar to the blueprint module, where you can basically drag and drop a particular subordinate into that succession plan. It also has the concept of the 9-box grid, which you can see on the left-hand side here, where employees are basically put into the 9-box grid depending on their performance and potential values. So you can see where they fit. And you can bring through some profile information about them, And you can also enter in some specific succession planning information, like how ready they are to take on a particular role, how available they would be to take on that role as well, what their strengths and weaknesses would be in that role, what their flight risk is, what training is required. It's actually quite custom, so you can add as many different things as you'd like. Now, I've had a couple of customers that have basically gone from having very manual forms and paper-based succession plans to using this tool to basically work with their business partners and create their various succession plans they needed to do. And they found that this was very time efficient because they would just basically run through the module, create the session plans on the fly, and basically have that all done in one go rather than having to create all these manual forms. Once you've got that plan created, it also can create a PDF version of that plan for you, which I've got up on screen now. So this plan has information about the current incumbent. So you can see Matthew Sullivan is currently in that role. I haven't got any comments in there, but you could have information like when they're planning to depart or any other comments about the current incumbent. And then you can see that we've got the rankings of the current successors for that role, where they sit in the 9-box grid, how ready they are to take on that role, and any other information you've entered. So this, as I mentioned before, is customizable. You can add in additional fields that may be relevant for you. And that gives you a bit of an idea. So hopefully that covers all of the use cases at a high level for Org+ Enterprise for you today. And you found a couple of features that you might be able to get more out of Org+ Enterprise. So I'm going to pass you back to Ben, and we can see if we've got any questions.
Cool. Thanks, Belinda. That was really good, and I hope everyone got something out of it. I have been getting some questions from people as I've been going through, but if you have any questions you'd like to ask Belinda, please type them into the question panel now and I'll read them out. There have been a few, so I might pass a few of them off to Belinda rather than me typing more back. I've been asked, can adapters be used for Org+ desktop versions as well as Org+ Enterprise?
Yes, they can. So basically the adapters sit really at the database level, and I'm not going to go too technical right now on you, but they can be connected up. The automation can also be done. It is probably just not quite as reliable as the enterprise version, only because enterprise is running on servers where desktop is obviously on your PC. But yes, definitely you can have an adapter set up, pull that data out, and that will save you a lot of time from a desktop perspective as well.
Cool. Another question we have is, can you restrict your data by company level?
From your HR system? I'm going to assume it's from your HR system, and yes, you can. So again, there's the adapter. It's basically a lot of code where we can have specific logic, so we can say only get it for this particular company or get it for particular companies, depending on how that's structured within your HR system, and only pull that specific data out. Probably as another example, we've had a few customers that didn't want to pull things like casuals through because they didn't want them in their org structure, or contractors as well. And so that sort of logic can be added into your adapter to get that information through.
Cool. We've got another one here, which is, what's the difference between a chart and an org tree?
Good question. Okay, so the chart is basically what we had on screen before, which is the boxes with the position names and names and position titles, I should say, within the box. The org tree is basically, it's a hierarchy view as well, but it's a line by line. I haven't got a screenshot to show you at the moment, but basically it's got little pluses next to everyone's names, and you can just view the hierarchy in probably just a flatter form, and takes up a lot less space than the chart. Yeah, it's a very similar look to how Windows Explorer looks from a file perspective as well, if that helps.
Cool. All right, we are running a bit low on time. I'll just quickly get one or two more out. What have we got? Everyone's typing them too fast. By the way, if I don't get to your question, we will get to them after the webinar, so I do apologize. We're just getting a lot of questions at the moment. Linda mentioned another webinar coming up. What was it and when's it scheduled? Do we know that information precisely yet?
I don't know if I did actually mention one, but we will be doing another one, I'm hoping very soon. We're trying to do them monthly, every 2 months or so. So at the moment we haven't got any scheduled, but they'll be coming soon. So we'll send information out with that coming up, yeah.
All right, and I'm going to have to do this. It's the last one, so sorry anyone who I've missed. what version are the Advanced Historical Analysis, so Archive and Compare, and Succession Planning available in?
They're available from version 4.3.
Yeah.
So 4.3, I believe. I'd have to double check that. But I think it's version 4.3 and above they're available from. So they're both the same version.
Yep. Fantastic. All right. Yeah, we're going to have to wrap it up just due to time. So first, thank you everyone for coming along today. As I mentioned, any questions that you guys have asked that we haven't had a chance to answer, we will get back to you as soon as we can and get those questions answered. We are also going to send out an email to everyone with a link to our blog, which is going to have a recording of this webinar on it. So if you want to revisit something, you can jump in there and have a look. So yeah, and also if you have missed anything, please feel free to put a question in and we'll get back to you, or feel free to give us a call, and you can see our number on the board there, and you can have a chat to Belinda, myself, or anyone else here. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone for coming along today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye.